So are we doing the thing right now, or are we?
Yeah, yeah, we're
Oh,
doing
this
it
is
right
it.
now. This is
Oh,
it,
we're doing it right
baby.
now. Oh, I wasn't sure if it.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Okay.
We're doing
All
it.
right.
We're gonna talk about a bunch of stuff, and
All right.
you've been, so we can start. But although I love that, we might use our little
Yeah.
chat as a little tease
Yeah.
to our what we're going to be talking about. But I'm so happy to see you, and I know that
I'm really happy to see you too.
I've really, I really appreciate that you've, Stanley, been able to cram me into your very, very busy
Oh my
schedule.
God.
Because what can I say? There's been a Tucci sans.
Yeah.
Am I right?
Yes, I think so. Yes, which yeah is
Uh,
wonderful and embarrassing. Yes.
Well, I think it's just plain wonderful, and I'm not embarrassed at all. But I want to ask you about all the different things you've been doing, Stanley, because you have been so busy. You have your CNN series about
Yeah.
Italy. You
Yeah.
have an upcoming book. You have a movie you just did with my sauce man, Colin Firth. I mean, you're also my sauce man, Stanley.
Well,
But
he's yeah.
I have had a thing for Colin Firth for decades now.
Well, it's hard not to.
He's
Yeah.
so sweet, isn't he?
He's so sweet. He's one of the nicest people ever. I mean, if he weren't, I wouldn't be friends with him. I mean, he's a really kind, thoughtful person, and that's what everybody loves about him. And you sense that. You see it
Right. He
in his
exudes decency,
performances.
doesn't he?
Yeah, he does. He's an incredibly decent person.
Well, we're going to talk about Colin and
All
your
right.
wonderful movie with him, and also about how you're delighting all your Instagram followers with your cocktails. And we'll talk about that and you and Felicity and how that all got started. But I thought we should start by talking about your extraordinary series on CNN, which I have to be honest, makes me very, very hungry. And since I've sworn off carbs, damn you, Stanley Tucci.
No, Katie, don't do it. Don't do it. You're
Just for
hungry.
21 days, I'm doing this
Oh, 21
reset.
days. What are you doing?
Yes, because
Are you doing a
things
keto?
things got out of control. No,
Okay.
I'm doing this thing called the Pegan reset. I'm trying not to call it a diet, where I've given up dairy,
Yeah.
gluten,
Yeah.
and sugar,
Yeah.
and it's tough.
Yeah.
But I
No,
have to
that's tough.
say, I
That's tough.
think that this series is beautiful
Oh, thank
and
you.
so much fun to watch. And I want to start by asking, how did this whole thing come about, Stanley?
Well, it's an idea that I had for a long time. I went back and I looked at notes that I had made. This is probably 12, 13 years ago. I wanted to do a series that uh, that basically focused on all the different regions of Italy and um, why they are so different. Because Italy, excuse me, as we know, was only united in 1861. So it was basically a series of city states up until then, and provinces. And a feudal system was still in place and actually remained in place until, I don't know, probably almost until after World War II, particularly in the South. But because of where it's situated geographically, it has an incredible array of possibilities for agriculture. So if you go from the Alps, the most northern point um, in the Veneto area is uh, is a German mountain. Well, it's a German name, but it's part Italian.
Yeah.
Then when you go down to Lampedusa, which is an island off the coast of Sicily where so many refugees come in, you're 90 miles off the coast of Africa. And the influences, culturally and gastronomically, uh, throughout Italy are profound because of where it's situated geographically. This peninsula so that you can access from the Middle East, from Spain, from France, from Austria, from Slovenia, from Hungary, from Switzerland. It's incredible. Um, and
So it's almost like multiple countries and cultures within a country.
with completely the way you build your house in the north is completely different than the way you build your house in the south. I mean, this happens in, of course, a lot of countries. But if you look at Italy, it's so narrow, and it's actually quite a small country. Um, that the extremes are extreme.
I can't imagine a better assignment for you, Stanley, because you're Italian on both sides. You're a foodie from way back, and you love to travel. So, how much fun was this just exploring these regions, and what did you learn from the experience?
Well, I learned a great deal because we wanted to incorporate always, not just that the idea of Italy. First of all, I wanted to sort of dispel the myth that Italy is the food of Italy is pasta and pizza and chicken parmigiana, which is not an actual Italian dish. It's
Yes, I saw some of the innards that you were consuming, and I
yes.
have to say, I think I would say check, please. I'm not an adventurous eater, Stanley.
Oh no, but Katie, then we'll go out to dinner, and you will be. It'll be fine. I
Okay.
promise. I promise. You needn't be afraid. But the I wanted to dispel that myth that pasta is with every meal and the tomato is in everything and so on and so forth. Yes, that's true in certain parts of Italy, but not all parts of Italy. Um, uh, Pasta gives way to polenta, which gives way to rice. Uh, there are certain meats that are available um, for in certain seasons for certain reasons, and everything is cyclical, and everything, excuse me, and everything is seasonal. And the Italians still promote this and believe it and live by it. And I think that's one of the things that makes them so that makes their cuisine so attractive. But the idea that you can have um, cavolo nero, which is uh, a black kale, that you have that in the north, but you don't necessarily have that in the south. That you have eggplant down in the south, but you don't have that. You'll never see an eggplant. You'll never see a tomato. You very seldom have pasta. Um, it was a really, really wonderful thing to explore and to, but the other aspect was that I wanted to show Italy not in a completely romantic light, but to show it truthfully through its food. And as you delve into that food, specifically in each region, what you're going to end up delving into is the society. And every society has issues. And there is a huge amount of poverty in Italy to this day, not just in the south, but in the north as well. And there's a lot of prejudice. There's a lot of um, uh, sort of, let's say, governmental confusion as to what a safety net should be and what a safety net shouldn't be. Um, and you want to, in each episode, sort of shine a little bit of a light on that. Um,
I think you
because,
do. I was going to say, Stanley, I was taken with how you showed sort of these forces that were butting up against each other in an episode when you talked about kind of gentrification or trying to have new restaurants in this certain area and
oh,
how they were
yes.
being bombed. And that to me was a microcosm of some of the social issues that are happening everywhere. This reaction to
Yeah.
multiculturalism, to disruption,
Yeah.
etc.
Yeah. It's really interesting and it's very sad because to me, as an Italian American, um, yes, when Italians came over, they came over because they were suffering terribly in Italy in the excuse me, between the wars or prior to World War I. But to to think that Italy would reject people in need when a lot of countries, America in particular, accepted uh, so many Italians when they were in need, is heartbreaking to me. And it's not that when the Italians came to America that they weren't vilified, that they weren't ostracized, that they weren't demonized. But ultimately, what they ended up doing was making our society so much better. And in Italy, there are those who really see the benefits of immigration, and there are those, particularly in the North, who don't. And one episode, the episode in Milan, I interview and spent time with a guy who is the sort of gamekeeper of Lake Como, and he looks after the health of the lake. He's a fisherman, and he's an ardent environmentalist, and yet at the same time, and these things don't often go together. He's anti-immigration, and he's part of the League, which is the right wing, um, a political group headed by Salvini. So there's a real dichotomy there, and we had a good conversation about it. But he's a lovely guy with a great family and everything. But you just think, if you could only see that the the more diversity there is, the healthier a country is.
You're able to deal with issues like immigration. You're also tell us about and maybe you can encapsulize the episode that I was referring to, Stanley, about there's some Italians that started restaurants in a fairly poor
Yeah,
neighborhood, and their restaurants got firebombed.
yeah.
What was sort of the impetus for that, and how was that in some ways a microcosm of what's happening in other places around the world?
Yeah, that's an interesting story to me because they don't fully understand yet, and what why they don't understand, I don't understand, because that information, they should have figured it out by now. Um,
What is it?
yeah, well, I think that there are those who say it's actually drug dealers who don't want the neighborhood to be gentrified because then you know they lose their income. And there are those who say it's the right wing uh, doing this because a lot of the places there are owned by immigrants, people who aren't native Italian. So they don't really know yet. They don't know why. All we know is as a neighborhood begins to change, either gentrify, and a lot of gentrification can be really bad. Let's face it. I mean, people are, made homeless. Things are changed. Not necessarily, they're changed for a very small group of people, for the 1%,
Right,
right?
right.
So gentrification is actually the interesting thing that I found about parts of a lot of London and England is that council flats and sort of private homes, fancy private homes, are living side by side, and you don't see that so much in America, and you don't necessarily see it in Italy. There's a very clear definition. So I think that part of it is gentrification. Part of it could just simply be, um, you know, drug dealers, and then neo Nazis.
let's you filmed this you filmed the series in COVID, right? I
Yeah,
mean,
the
let's talk
second
about,
two
let
two
me ask it.
episodes.
Let me ask it. How did COVID affect the production schedule? And what was it like kind of taking this on in the middle of a global pandemic?
Well, it was we did the first four episodes prior to the pandemic. The second, the second leg of it was done just two episodes. It just makes it more complicated. It makes it harder. It's not as much fun. You want to be you want to follow all the protocols and be really careful, and every day you're learning something new at that point about COVID, and well, still, but it was hard. It was hard. I mean, I have a friend of mine who's directing a series here now. Excuse me, for Netflix. I think for Netflix something, and he and he
One of
yeah,
those.
one of those. He told me that they've added $17 million to their budget simply for testing and COVID protocols. I'm
Wow.
doing
Well,
something here, and I'm tested. Once I start the job on Thursday, I think I'm tested 5 days a week. So if you think about hundreds of people, how much that costs, it's going to actually change the face of the film industry significantly. Because the movie that I made with Colin will called Supernova, that we made for £3 million. You won't see a movie like that for quite a while
why is that?
because of the protocols. Because you can't afford
It can't afford
it.
it. We'll talk about Supernova, but you don't really you don't really talk much about the pandemic in the series, which I thought was interesting. There would be maybe a mask here, an elbow
Yeah.
bump there. And was that a conscious decision? Because Italy was so devastated. And of course, we watched in horror as so many people were dying from this disease. Did you feel like it would date it, or, how did you
No, I
decide how to
think
handle that?
I don't know. I don't know, Katie. I don't know why we didn't do that. I think I think we were I think we were all a bit shocked by it, and I think we just wanted to try to move forward because it was at a point where we thought that things were getting better. And uh, you don't want to skirt the issue, but you also don't. It's not an investigative show. You know what I
Right.
mean? It's not that. You want to acknowledge it, but I going forward, I would like to talk more about that. I would like to talk more about the loss and also the success of the way the Italians uh, handled it from the get go
You
because they were
you make it
because
a
they were the first.
you make it a chance to do that because I know you're doing another season. Is it going to be searching for Italy, or is it going to be searching for the UK? Where are you going to be? What are you going to be searching next, Stanley?
Well, we're going to search different regions. We're going to do six different regions, and then
Different regions of the
no,
world,
no,
or
Italy, Italy.
oh, you're doing more Italy
Yeah,
though.
yeah. You seem bored.
There's
You
more.
seem bored by that.
No, not at all. I'm excited about it. In fact, I think for a lot of people, we just got so much vicarious pleasure, not only watching you eat, and I have to ask how you stay so thin, Stanley, because it's friggin' annoying to watch you eating all that stuff. And then to watch you and you like look like you don't even have body fat. Anyway, but I think people just love watching it, especially because we are all desperate to travel. And
Yeah,
I think
yeah,
for us to see you enjoying, these beautiful, fascinating places full of incredible people, I think I loved, meeting the people behind the
yeah,
food.
yeah.
I think it sort of spirited us away from our pandemic blues, if you will.
Yeah,
So I
yeah.
love Italy, and I'm happy you're doing more. I'm excited just to watch whatever you do, Stanley.
You're very kind.
So
Thank you.
no, no, because you're so fun to watch, and you're kind of easy to be with on television. I can't explain it, but do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You just feel like a travel companion. So it's been really nice. But do you? What's the response been? Are a lot of people saying that to you? Like it's just so much fun to see the world,
Yeah, it is.
or at
It
least
is.
a part of the
It
world.
is. No, it is. You don't, you have to be careful not to make it trite, as I said, not to make it, oh, isn't Italy the most romantic place in the world? And yes, there's romance in Italy, there's romance everywhere, but, there are darker aspects of every country, and we touch on them. But I, for me, it's really just about telling the truth of that country through its cuisine. And the cuisine is arguably the I think it's the most beloved food in the world. If you said to anyone, "Do you like Italian food?" Have you ever met a person who says no?
No,
No, never.
no.
If you say Japanese food, I love Japanese food, they'll go, "Nah, Japanese food." You know what I mean? They go, "No, I don't." And of course, it's reduced to sushi, which isn't just Japan. It's Japanese food, but it's a part of Japanese food, Chinese food. If you say Italian food, everybody goes. If you say French food, they go, do you mean cream? And is that French food? Yeah, a part of it. Yeah, but not everything. So I don't think there's the only other thing that people will say that they love consistently is a hamburger. There isn't a person in the world who doesn't, unless you're a vegetarian. Then you have all these other options now. But every chef, I always ask every chef, "What's your favorite food?" When you're really hungry, what do you want? They go, "Oh, a hamburger."
How do you stay so skinny, Stanley?
I exercise obsessively, and I'm blessed with a very fast metabolism. Really, I mean, really. And
And
I eat pasta like every day.
I hate people like
Yeah,
you,
I know,
Stanley, but that's
but
okay. I
I work out like a yeah.
I know you do. I know you do because I've seen those guns, Stanley. I know
Oh
you
yeah,
work out.
yeah.
So,
Don't be afraid.
how
Don't
did
be
you
afraid. Yes.
how how did you become a foodie in the first place? Because this is not your first rodeo when it comes to kind of exploring cuisines. Can you take me back to your like food origin story where you thought, I really love food, and who influenced you? Because I sort of know the answer, but some of our listeners may not.
My family, my mother, my grandmother, my on both sides. Um, food was everything. Sitting around the table at night was what you just did. You were not late for dinner. Um, if you were sort of roundly chastised. Um, and my mother, and I write about this in the book, and my mother was, is an incredible cook. I mean, she's the kind of person that, I mean, had she chosen to be a professional chef, she would have been extraordinary, beyond, beyond. And I'm not saying this because, oh, every Italian boy loves his mother's cooking. It's not like I've been around, not in that sense, Katie, but you're just like, whoa, no matter where I travel, no matter where I go, I always go back to those flavors and that process. And when I find something new, it's great. But ultimately, that's the stuff that really works. I mean, really works. It's extraordinary.
Describe describe the Tucci family dinner table growing up, because I just want to have people get an image of it and what it was like, where it was, and kind of the commotion that would take place
Yeah, I
there.
mean, we're just in Westchester and in our house and excuse me, in Katona, and we had this ranch house that my parents had built, which now would be, I mean, you couldn't buy a car for the price of the house and the whole thing. Beautiful house on a cul-de-sac in the in suburbia, but it was quite wooded. It was really beautiful. It wasn't sort of like houses lined up all together. It was really quite beautiful, and we just we just my mother would just make these amazing meals um, every night, and as you'd go to your grandparents' house on a Sunday um, and have an even maybe more amazing meal. You'd come home, and on Monday, you'd have the leftovers for lunch. And then whatever you had that night for dinner, the next night, Monday night, Tuesday night, you would have the leftovers for lunch. I think I'm not answering your question. I'm sorry.
No, no, you're giving me a nice meal plan,
Yeah.
Stanley, from your family from your family dinner. But what I was looking for was sort of, your siblings, the
Oh
atmospherics.
yeah.
Was it
Yeah,
loud?
it was
Was
it
it
was it
fun?
was
You know,
my dad came. He was an art teacher. He retired and is still alive. He's about to be 91. Um,
wow, that's so
and
nice for you.
that's great. It's great. Probably better for him because he's still alive. But but yeah, it was that my mom worked in the office at the high school where he taught in Chappaqua, and they went to work together every day, came home every day. So my dad was home when we were home after school, which was great. And then you do your homework or not do your homework, and then they were always cooking dinner together.
How many little Tucci's were running around, Stanley?
There were me and my two sisters, younger sisters, and it was wonderful. I mean, it was in the time of there was one black and white television, and my father used to watch the Huntley Brinkley Report. Is that what it was called?
We did too.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, the
Every
Huntley Brinkley
night.
Report on NBC.
Yeah, every night. And my mother cooked. My father was a sous chef. There was no sort of like the man does this, the woman does this. It wasn't like that. Although she did do more of the cooking because she was really good at it. And then everybody pitched in and cleaned up, and you sat around the table and you had wonderful conversations, or you had arguments, or you had whatever. And but every night was, I mean, I remember my mother just sort of making paella that was extraordinary. Or suddenly, making, crepes, with bechamel and chicken and, and you thought, she's gone to work. She's worked all day. Then she comes home and she does all this stuff. My dad helps her. And then, it was an amazing uh, culinary experience every week.
So she really infused in you and your dad, I think, a love of food.
Oh
And
yeah,
so that's kind
brilliant.
of from an early age how you became kind of enamored with cuisine. And did they speak Italian? How did you become so proficient in Italian?
No, they didn't really speak. My father spoke some Italian. My mother spoke Italian, but more dialect. Um, I learned in Florence when I was 12. We lived there for a year when I was 12. And then of course, you're 12, you speak fluently because you don't have much else up there. Um,
Yeah.
so, you become this sort of, lingual sponge. But then I, when I was doing Big Night, I studied Italian again for about a year. And now, before the series, I studied again. So every time I go, it comes back. Suddenly, it starts to come back. But I have to make a concerted effort to learn it properly because
You
it disappeared.
well, it sounds like, you know what you're talking about.
Well, I'm
All I
back.
know is, like, grazie and prego
Yeah.
and ciao.
No, it's good enough, Katie. So just
I'd like to I'd like to learn Italian.
do it.
Maybe I'll do that.
Do it.
I think it would be good for my
No, it
brain too to
actually
learn a
is really
new
good to
language.
do. It is. I do it with a guy online. Um, he's Italian. He was teaching here in England. We had like two things, excuse me, two sessions in person. And then it was like, I was like, don't drive all the way here and come. He was in, North London or something. I was like, don't. We'll just do it on this is pre pandemic. And now he's moved to Spain where his wife is. And we just do it, on Zoom like this. And it's great. And it's really, really great. It's really great. And we just, like, he does not allow me to speak in English, which is really painful for both of us.
I want to talk about the new book that's coming out, but first I want to talk to you about Supernova
Hmm.
and this small but very moving movie that you did with my BFF
Yes,
Colin
yes,
for the uninitiated,
yes,
and it is the story of two men who have been a couple for 20 years.
yeah,
And it's a very quiet story that unfolds, and obviously your character is in early stages of dementia.
yeah.
Um, and what I mean, I hate this sort of such a hackneyed question, but what drew you to the role, and why did you say you must get a million scripts, Stanley? Let's be honest.
No,
And no, you
I
come
don't.
on, you
But
do.
thank you for
Listen, it's the
saying that.
Tucci sans. It's the Tucci sans. Come
Yes,
on.
maybe now, yeah, but yeah.
But I'm curious what has to happen to really suck you in and to say I'm going to devote a lot of time making this movie. And what was it in this case?
It was the purity of the script and the poetry of it and the absence of drama and melodrama. It was gorgeous. It was a script that you read and you go, oh, I wish I'd written that. It's beautiful. But I was not going to play that role. I was going to play Colin's role. And then when I read it, I loved it so much. And I watched Harry's movie, Harry McQueen, who wrote and directed it. Yeah, I watched his first film, which he had made for £10,000. Uh,
Wow.
so if any filmmaker thinks that they need a lot of money to make a movie,
Well, only when they have expensive actors like you,
yeah,
Stanley.
yeah. But he made this really beautiful movie for £10,000, and then I watched it, and then I met Harry, and he was as wonderful as his writing and his filmmaking. And then I said, I think Colin should play the other guy. Now, unbeknownst to Harry, I slipped it to Colin, and Colin read it, and he called me up. He goes, "My God, it's so beautiful." I said, I know." So then Colin signed on, and very soon afterward, of course, the money came through. With me signed on, I'm not so sure what would have happened. But once that happened, we started talking with Harry and, talking through it and everything. And then Colin called me and he goes, I think we have to switch roles. And I said, yeah, I was thinking the same thing, but I don't know why. So then
I was going to say why. I mean,
I
what was
don't
that?
know. I don't know, Katie. I don't know. It just didn't feel right. So then, and that this doesn't happen. I mean, you can only do that with your like best friend, and like you can't go, hey, by the way, when you sign on for a project, I think we should switch roles. And the studio goes, what? No. Um, so we go to Harry, and poor Harry, blanched, and he's and he said, all right, well, let's, in typical sort of British fashion, let's read it. So we read 5 scenes, and then we switched roles because it was more right. I don't know why. There was something rhythmically more right about it being this way.
And the first scene is Colin and the two of you. I think I would say in a semi spoon in bed. You're
Yes.
semi
Yeah.
spooning,
Yeah.
not a full spoon,
No,
but
it's
a
a
semi
teaspoon.
spoon. A teaspoon, yeah. And I don't know. Was it fun doing this movie with someone who you're very close to and you really like, and you play a gay couple? So I think it must be an added extra if you actually like your
No, it helps.
on screen
It
partner.
helps if you trust and love the person that you're working with. It's always difficult to play a same-sex person if that's always more complicated. But in the end, you just want to tell that story truthfully. Um, and it's complex, but ultimately, it's the story that makes the difference.
And I feel like this is illustrative. I don't know. I mean, you would know much more about this than I, but of this opening up of art and film to, I hate to use sort of modern vernacular that is sometimes overused, but to make it more representative, more inclusive, more
Yeah.
you know such a variety of experiences. I don't know. Do you feel that is really happening um, in a significant way now? Because just as a casual observer, I do, and I think it's so exciting and wonderful, and it makes you realize how myopically one sided or one dimensional a lot of our culture was,
Yes.
and and I'm just curious if looking at the big picture, you notice that too.
Do you mean regarding? Do you mean,
Every different, I mean, gay stories,
yeah.
black
Yes.
stories,
Yeah.
all kinds of
Stories, aging
stories that I
stories.
think
Yeah.
heretofore were marginalized or really not told at all.
Yes, without question. I think what's happening now is a great thing. There were questions raised, of course, because neither Colin and I are gay, um, which it seems you'd be happy about. But I think that the wonderful thing is that for us, selfishly, we've been embraced by the gay community before, having played gay characters before, and in this film, the same thing has happened. I think that eventually, what is going to happen, and we've talked about this in interviews, that for me, it's a societal issue. Why gay actors have not been able to just be whomever they are. Um, the the more society is open, the more expansive um, the arts can be. Art is often a reaction to repression, but I think that I'm hoping that in America and here and throughout the world that will begin to change, and art can be then an expression or an extension of freedom and a new reality. And that reality is love. And it doesn't matter who it is that you love. And I think that's the beauty of that story, of this film, is that love is love and loss is loss.
We're going through I think the growing pains of a shifting society. And, we could talk about this a lot, but maybe over one of your Negronis one day. But, this whole idea of, you know, opening the doors to people who were not represented before. And yet, I totally understand this, but the idea of having to have an actor who's portraying a certain role come from that role, I think that's a slippery
Yeah,
slope
no,
too.
I
Because
agree.
aren't we all occupying me like I'm an actor, but aren't all actors occupying a an an alternate personage? And the idea that you have to be that person to occupy that space. I don't know.
No, no, I agree with you.
I find that challenging to wrap my head
No,
around.
no, and I don't believe in that. I just read this interview with Rupert Everett, and he said, "No, I don't believe that gay actors should only play that no one who isn't gay should not be able to play a gay role."
And no one who is gay shouldn't be able to play a straight role.
Exactly, and that's the problem. That's the genesis of it. The
Right.
genesis is, as I said before, gay actors, gay people were not allowed to simply be who they were in society. So if you can't be that, then you're hiding all the time. And then gay men are playing straight men and only straight men. And then so everyone is straight, right? In society. But but by the old sort of standards. And you're like, no, it doesn't make any sense. It makes no sense. So what once there's an opening, then anybody, it sounds so silly, but anyone then will be accepted playing anyone. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
Am I making
Yes.
sense? Or
Yes, you are. You are. I think what you're
I think
saying
you are,
is
yes.
no, I know. I'm thinking about it. It's how we view people as a society that prevents or gives permission
Right,
to people
right,
uh, to play a whole host of
right,
roles. Because I think that's what happened to Rupert Everett, right? I mean, he was typecast, and right,
right.
and I think the roles dried up for him because he was only viewed as a certain way, which was just
Yeah, I guess
patently
so. I
unfair.
don't know, but to me, Rupert's a wonderful actor. That's all I know. I don't know anything different than that. I don't care if a person, whatever their sexuality, I don't really care.
Well, I think the mores are just changing so much, and that people, I think things have changed so dramatically. And I'm writing a memoir right now, and I just even look back on the 90s when I was covering stories, or
Yeah,
some of the questions I asked, whether it was about sexual harassment with Anita Hill, or how I interviewed Matthew Shepard's parents, or how we covered Rodney King. It was just in so many ways, Stanley, clueless. And I think that we have evolved so much.
yes.
I mean, sometimes to the point where, it comes crashing down on
No,
top of
yeah.
you if you haven't evolved enough. But it's really fascinating to me just how much in the last, gosh, 2 decades or so, our attitudes have shifted for the better.
Oh, yeah.
And
And I think
I think that's what you're
no, I
saying.
think you're right, and I think particularly in the last, like, almost like 3 years. Like,
Yeah,
it's so,
true.
but that's also because of the of technology has
It's
changed.
technology, but also, two pretty dramatic social movements,
Yes,
whether you're talking about Black Lives
yeah,
Matter, Me Too, and Time's Up. I think the confluence of those two movements have really put the issues front and center as they've never been
Yeah.
before, for the better, I
Yeah.
think.
I agree.
Obviously, the pendulum can, in certain cases, swing too far. And,
Yes.
I think
Yes.
no social justice movement is perfect, but I think I think that has really moved the ball forward in such a palpable,
But
significant way.
but
And
also,
so I guess that's what.
yeah, no, I was going to say that
No,
also,
you go ahead.
but you have, like, as you said, but I want to ask you a question, if I may, that you have seen
Sure.
this, as a reporter for so many years, and it has distinctly changed for you. Do you, how do you feel now about when you're talking to people? How do you, is it easier for you now, or is it harder for you now? Because there are so many caveats in a way.
Right.
You know
I
what I
think
mean?
they're,
And obviously,
yeah, of course.
this is your thing, so you can just have it out. But
No, no, no. Yeah. I mean, I think they're, listen, I think that, you know, cultural conditioning, deep seated attitudes that are formed and, um, compounded
mm,
over years and
mm,
years of visual stimuli, conversations, mass media, um, you know, familial kind of, I think, outlooks, they form us as a person. And I
yeah,
think what's really hard is to, be vulnerable enough to kind of challenge your own biases,
yes, yes,
which
yes,
have developed over the years.
yes,
I think that, it can be tricky because I think the current landscape, people want to jump on people right
I
away,
know,
right?
I know.
This instantaneous judgment. And there's very little forgiveness in the culture. There's very little forgiveness for mistakes.
Yeah,
And I've made my fair share of mistakes, certainly. And when you're a public figure, it can be very tough
mhm,
and very painful,
yeah,
honestly.
yeah,
When you but I would hope that people can recognize fair-minded individuals who want to learn and want to be better. But
yeah,
it doesn't happen overnight
yeah, yeah,
necessarily after, 60 years of conditioning.
yeah.
So I try to be mindful. I try not to say stupid things, but I also, I like compassionate teachers. I think that and by the way, this is me coming from me as a 64-year-old who has had certain life experiences and privileges, and I get that. Um, but it can be tricky. And I pride myself on being a lifelong learner and being
Yeah.
open to understanding. And I think I really appreciate the opportunity, and I more than that, I appreciate the changes I'm witnessing. And but I think for some people it does take adjusting, and once in a while, I think a little bit of slack
Yeah, yeah.
can be a good
No,
thing.
no,
D- You
I
know,
agree.
but I have my 25-year-old extremely woke daughter there to keep me in line every step of the way. How about you? Do your kids, your older kids, not your little ones,
Yeah.
um, do you feel like they're educating you on some of these things?
Yes, always, always. They educate you on who you are. Um, it's always changing. It's always different. Um, I think particularly in the pandemic, because there's no consistency. Who knows, when somebody's living here or there, when they're going to go back to school, when they can come back home and stay. And you know, one of my daughters went and stayed with her boyfriend for like almost 6 weeks, and rightly so. I mean, she's 21 years old, and and then but he was staying with us for a while before that, and so I don't know. I don't know. It's
It's
so
that it's that
complicated.
oh
It's the whole thing is everything is heightened and exacerbated. Any issues, good or bad, are exacerbated by this pandemic.
but do they teach you about kind of, I feel like young people are so aware and so much better than we we are
Yes,
in some
yes,
ways. And when it comes to kind of societal issues and change and these thorny matters of race and gender and class, do you feel like I first heard the word intersectionality from my daughter, and
what's the word?
intersectionality. It's about the intersection of race and gender, and she's so smart. But that's what I meant. Do they kind of open your eyes and challenge perhaps some of the ways you've thought about things to say, Dad, have you ever
Yes, of
considered
course.
this?
Without question, without question. I think the only thing that I fear, and this is inevitable, when things sort of start to tilt in another direction in an extreme way.
Or too far?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Is a lack of irony, and I think that irony is absolutely crucial to our existence, and it is the sort of genesis or the basis of all humor, of good humor.
Right.
No,
Right. Right.
no. So I fear the loss of irony um, when somebody can't make somebody makes a joke and you're like, oh, you're a racist, or oh, you're a sexist, or oh, you're a blah blah blah, and you're like, no, actually, no, it was just there was something sort of not even a joke, just a something. So I fear the loss of irony, but I do think that eventually things come around, and this is a natural
Yeah.
progression.
I think earnestness and irony are probably they're not the best cocktail,
No,
right?
they're not the best cocktail, but they can. It's like a Pousse Cafe. Do you know what a Pousse Cafe is?
I
Okay, so
don't.
a Pousse Cafe. If I look at that actually that print behind you or painting behind you,
Yeah.
so it's layers. So what you do with the Pousse Cafe is you take the heaviest liquor and you put a drop in, a shot. Then you take another liquor and you put it in, and they lay on top of one another. It's a very complicated drink. It can be made with like 7, 14, or 21 liquors, something insane. No one would ever. I mean, it's disgusting, but visually, it's quite beautiful. Uh, and so you layer it, and that's the way those two things sort of have to sit like that. But at the same time, we have to let them come together. We have to let earnestness and irony come together. And we go through periods of time where that happens, and then it changes again. I think yeah, it changes. We'll get there.
That's a good
We'll get
that's
there again.
yeah, we just need a good shaker
You need
like
a
the
good
ones
shaker.
you use, like the ones you use for your cocktails
Yes.
on Instagram. Wasn't that a seamless transition?
Hey, come on. Who are you talking to?
So I've gotten such a kick out of you. First of all, hilariously, you're the sauce man, as you know, Stanley, and but also as the hot mixologist on Instagram.
Yes.
So how did that all start? Obviously, your wife Felicity, who I'm so happy that you met Felicity, and
Too.
you
Yeah.
talked about love is love and loss is loss. You lost your wife, I lost my husband, so
Yes.
that's why I
Yes.
feel like we actually can talk about that because
Yes.
we have that in common. But I guess you and Felicity. First of all, can I ask you real quickly about your meeting because you were at Emily Blunt and I always say his name wrong, Krasinski,
Krasinski.
right?
No, you said it right. Yeah,
Krasinski's
yeah,
wedding. I love him,
yeah,
by the way.
yeah.
I just don't say his name very often. And that's when you met Felicity, Emily's sister,
Yeah.
and she had you at Hello, right?
No, not really. No, she. We actually had met at the Devil Wears Prada premiere, uh, and I talked to her for a while, but she ended up really talking to Kate, my late wife, a lot about books because they're voracious readers, and um, I actually have a photograph of them together. That
Oh
that
wow,
uh,
that's so
I
moving,
know
actually.
that Felicity's mom took. Um, but yes, then I went to M's wedding, and this was oh gosh, maybe a year. No, yeah, a year after Kate had passed away, and yeah, we met and re-met, and we hit it off, and then I was coming to England to do uh, Captain America, and and
That
yeah, and
sorry, that
which
just made me laugh.
no, I know it's weird. I know. I played the elderly Jewish scientist who created Captain America, which was actually, I have to say, one of the best jobs I've ever had in my life. Uh, um, and and then we started, going out to dinner, and we started dating, and then yeah, that was that.
And one thing led to another, and you all had two children,
Yeah,
and and this wonderful new life together. So
yeah,
I'm just very happy for
yeah.
you both.
No, thank you.
And
Yeah.
I feel like Felicity was sort of behind the Instagram cocktail making.
Well,
That you
totally. I mean, I have no savvy when it comes to this stuff. So she said, um, "Why don't you do a cocktail?" Beginning of lockdown, first lockdown, she said, "Do a cocktail for Curtis Brown, our agency where she works, and I'm represented by them." And I said, "Yeah, all right. It'll just be an in-house thing, and you do it." I said, "Yeah, great." And then we did it and sent it to everyone, and they were so happy. And she said, "Put it on your Instagram." So we did that, and meaning I don't actually know how to do it, but you know, and
yeah,
yeah, you know what I mean. And then
yeah.
uh, it that happened.
It blew up, as the kids say,
It blew up.
Stanley.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
blew up.
yeah, yeah, yeah. We crashed it.
So yeah. I think you don't say you say we crushed it or
Oh, we
we
crushed it.
crashed
Oh,
the
crushed it.
internet.
That's the word. Sorry. I'm so fucking old. Jesus.
Before we go, I want
We
to give
crushed it.
a
Yeah.
quick
Sorry.
shout out. I want to give a quick shout out to your upcoming book.
Yes.
Tell me about that. I love your first one. You were sweet enough to send it to me. Plus those beautiful glasses, by the way,
Oh,
which
oh,
was
good.
so nice of
Oh,
you.
good.
I sent you a thank you. I
Yes.
hope you got it.
No, I
It
did.
wasn't through snail
I
mail.
didn't read
I
it,
did
but
it
I got it.
through
No,
on.
I'm kidding. Yeah.
Okay. Well,
No, no,
that
no.
was
Thank
so
you.
kind of you,
Yeah. Yeah.
and Felicity, because I think she had a hand in that as well. But um,
Sure.
what was I
Yeah.
going to
No,
ask
the
you,
book. The
Stanley?
book.
That was
Yeah. So
leading
I
to.
wrote. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I
Oh wait.
wrote.
So
What?
you left me the book. Sorry. Let me pick up
Right. Go
so
ahead. Go
that
ahead.
I don't kill Derek editing this. But um, you sent me those beautiful glasses. You sent me your first book, which I love, and now you're in the process of doing another because you don't have enough on your plate, as
No,
it
no,
were.
as it were.
So what is this one about, and when does it come out?
Well, it's a memoir of sorts. It's called Taste: My Life Through Food, and it's exactly that, up to now, because I don't know any.
Honey, give me a better elevator pitch than that.
Yeah. And it's just about like growing up and eating great things, and then a little bit about Julia and Julia, some little anecdotes there and things like that, and sometimes it delves into the particulars of pasta and bolognese, and experiences with that. Sometimes it's just I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what it is. I've never done anything like it. I'm going through the, you know, copy edits now, which is
I'm doing that.
sort of. Are
I'm doing right.
you
I'm
doing it?
doing that right now.
You are?
Yeah, I have a memoir that is actually due yesterday,
Oh
Stanley,
my God.
and I've been going yeah, and I've been working on it for about 2.5 years, and I'm going through everything now, and I don't know, I'm sort of panicked right now that gosh, it makes you feel very vulnerable. You're
Yeah.
putting something out in the world. It's
Yeah.
extremely personal. It's ridiculously honest. It's about honestly, it's the only memoir I'll ever write. It's about my life and
Yeah.
how I got into this crazy business and sort of the tragedies and the
No,
triumphs.
of course.
And
No, you suffered.
and it
You went through a real loss. You know.
but and also I've had some professional
Yes.
disappointments. I've dealt with some, real dicks in the business, and and so I am like putting this out there, and all of a sudden I'm seized by terror that I'm doing this, and I kind of just want to put the whole thing in a fire. Do you feel that
Yes, of
ever, or
course.
is this
Yeah.
just
No, as
me?
I'm going through it today, I thought, what am I doing? Who cares? Who cares?
Yeah.
And also, it's like, why would you want to? But but I want to tell the story. Do you know what I mean? I want to tell the story of food. In I'm fascinated by it, but to tell the story of food, I have to tell the story about myself.
Right. And that's hard and
Yeah,
scary.
really scary. Really, yeah,
Well, I'm glad you're feeling the
yeah.
same
No,
way. That
terrifying.
makes me feel
Oh,
a
so
little
you're
bit
going through the
better.
same. It's so terrible.
Totally.
I was.
Totally, like not sleeping,
No,
worried,
no, no,
and
no.
self full just full of
Yeah.
self doubt, and bordering on loathing.
Yes, of course. Yes, yes, yeah.
Anyway, well, listen, I feel like this has been a really helpful therapy session
Well,
for me,
I'll do
Stanley.
anything I can to help you. You know that.
Thank you, thank you.
Always.
And I want you to be able to be with your children. But I really love talking to you. Thank you for doing our little
Oh,
podcast,
well, no, well,
Stanley.
thank you, and I really appreciate it. I'm glad it worked out, and I just think you're wonderful.
Oh, thanks,
Good.
Stanley. Right back at ya,
Thanks.
as Sarah Palin would say.
Yeah. Oh, and my favorite interview of all time.
You're
I
welcome.
think about it all the time. It is extraordinary.
Well,
Extraordinary.
thank you. Thanks, Stanley. All right, well, take good care and look forward to whatever you're doing next. And good luck with the second season of Searching for Italy.
Thank you. And you send me your
Okay.
book, and I'll send you mine.
Yeah, do. I would love it. Okay.
Ciao.
Bye,
Thank you, hon.
Stanley.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Ciao. Ciao,
Ciao. Ciao.
Bambino.
Ciao. Ciao.